Hey everybody, Zach Wolf here with another great Top 5 Tuesday, work from home edition. This week on Top 5 Tuesday, it's my top 5 tips for the plaintiff's lawyer in a non-compete TRO hearing. I had a non-compete TRO hearing recently where I successfully defended against an application for a TRO, that's a temporary restraining order. And it got me thinking about some tips for TROs in non-compete cases. And I had so many good ones that I'm dividing it up between plaintiff tips and defendant tips. Okay, so these are the plaintiff tips for the party seeking the TRO to enforce a non-compete. Number 5 is when you're drafting the proposed TRO, it's probably a good idea to put a specific geographic limitation in the proposed temporary restraining order. Now, this should usually match up with the geographic limitation in the non-compete itself, but not always. It might even be narrower than that. And if the non-compete itself describes the geographic area in some way that doesn't exactly tell you what that area is, make it more specific. For example, if the non-compete itself is tied to where customers are located, that won't necessarily tell the judge what specific area is covered. So figure out what that should be and describe that area specifically in your proposed TRO. My number 4 tip for the plaintiff trying to get a non-compete TRO is to be specific about the names of customers who are off limits in your proposed TRO. In most cases, a non-compete TRO ought to be limited to certain specific customers, such as customers the employee dealt with, customers the employee learned confidential information about, something like that. And it's better to describe those customers by naming them specifically in the TRO than trying to describe them by some category, as the non-compete itself probably does. You're going to have a better chance of getting the judge to approve that TRO because it tells the defendant specifically what the defendant cannot do. My number 3 tip for the plaintiff who is trying to get a TRO to enforce a non-compete is do not assume that a contractual stipulation to a TRO is sufficient. Most non-competes are going to have a clause where the employee agrees that if there's a violation of the non-compete, that the company is entitled to a temporary restraining order or temporary injunction. Don't assume that that by itself is going to get you a TRO. There is Texas case law that says that kind of stipulation is not binding on the judge. Whether to grant a TRO is going to be a matter within the judge's discretion. I wrote about this issue recently at my blog, 5 Minute Law, so Google it and you can read more about why a contractual stipulation is not necessarily sufficient. My number 2 tip is related to number 3. Remember, I said a TRO is not automatic, it's not routine, it's supposed to be for an emergency. So my number 2 tip is you need to come to the TRO hearing prepared to explain why there's an emergency and why there's going to be irreparable injury if the judge doesn't grant a TRO. So you need to be prepared to explain why violation of the non-compete by the employee is going to cause some harm that creates an emergency and that could not be adequately remedied by damages. And finally, my number 1 tip for the plaintiff who is trying to get a TRO to enforce a non-compete is to think about whether you really need a TRO. This ties back to number 2. If you don't have a true emergency, and if you don't have real irreparable injury that's going to happen between the time of the hearing on the TRO and 2 weeks later when you have a hearing on a temporary injunction, then consider whether you really want or need to apply for a TRO. You might be better off just asking to schedule a temporary injunction hearing where the judge is going to hear evidence from both sides and probably be more willing and more open to considering your argument that you need an injunction. So those are my top 5 tips for the plaintiff trying to get a non-compete TRO. If you like these tips, hey, please hit the like button. If you like the video, share it with a friend. If you've got comments, leave comments for me. I'd love to hear from you. And hey, thanks for watching.